Hey guys, Tom here again from SerumPresets.com, and in this tutorial we're going to be looking at making a really nice warm Trance Pluck completely from scratch using Serum. I'll just quickly show you what it actually sounds like. So a really nice sound. This is probably one of my favorite types of sounds to create, and funnily enough, they are actually quite easy to make as well, which I'll get into in just a second. But before we get into making the sound, I'll just quickly mention, as you can see here, this is Pluck 09. This is actually Pluck 09 from my Trance preset pack that I've created for Serum. If you're interested in that, you can go ahead and go to the link in the description or go to SerumPresets.com, where you'll find a preview of all the sounds in that. There's actually 256 presets in that pack created by me. Loads of really nice plucks like this, loads of leads, trance basses, pads, and effects as well. So if you're interested in that, click the link in the description below and check that out. But without further ado, let's just initialize this patch here and go about creating the sound completely from scratch. So as I mentioned, these sounds, although they are really nice, they're actually really simple to make. Actually, you'll have noticed that we're just using saw waves for the sound, and most of the sound is actually coming from the actual filter itself, like the modulation of the cutoff, which I'll get into in just a second. So the first thing we're going to do is simply just switch on Osc A and B. We're not going to be using the sub or the noise oscillator in this sound. The noise oscillator may be something that you want to implement, but because we're just going to stick with quite a simple sound here, we're just going to keep it relatively simple. So the first thing I'm going to do is pitch oscillator A an octave below oscillator B. So the notes that oscillator A is producing is going to be a whole octave below oscillator B. Now, this will completely depend on the MIDI notes and the octave of the chords that you're actually inputting into Serum. So for me, this sounds about right, but say the chords you're inputting into Serum are an octave above mine, then you'll want to adjust these the octave of the oscillators to compensate for that. But the main thing to make sure is just that oscillator A is an octave below oscillator B. The next thing we're going to do is just increase the unison amount to 7 on each of these oscillators and bring down the detune just a little bit. Essentially what unison is doing is basically creating multiple voices within the oscillator. So an oscillator A, for example, we've got this saw wave. When we increase the unison to 7, instead of just hearing one saw wave, we're hearing 7 that are all slightly detuned, and what this results in is us perceiving it as being wider or a thicker sound, which obviously we want for a nice warm analog pluck. The next thing we're going to do is just simply jump into envelope 1 here. By default, if you didn't know, envelope 1 is the amplitude envelope for the sound. So obviously we're creating a pluck sound. We want a pluck-like amplitude envelope. So what we're going to do is just bring the sustain right down here. And just adjust the curve a little bit so it's a bit more pluck-like in nature, and we're going to give it about 500 seconds of release or something like that anyway. So this is basically just a graphical representation of the volume or amplitude of the sound over time. Obviously we want it to be a pluck-like sound. The next thing we're going to do is switch the filter on here, and first of all make sure that both oscillator A and B are being routed through the filter. So we're just going to switch this on here, The filter we're going to use is the MG low pass 24 dB filter. In case you didn't know what these different filter types mean, so we have our normal low pass filters here and high pass and band pass and whatever, and then we also have these MG low pass filters. And the reason that these are also implemented is these are actually a different type of low pass filter modeled off of like a Moog filter or something like that, like a ladder filter, which behaves slightly differently to just a regular low pass filter, and it has more of an analog sound, if you will. The number at the end essentially means the dB per octave being attenuated by the filter. So a Moog low pass 24 dB filter is going to have a much more extreme effect on the sound than, say, a 6 dB filter, which will let much more of the frequency content actually pass through it. So as mentioned, we are going to be using an envelope to modulate the cutoff of the filter, and we're just going to use the same envelope that we used for the amplitude, and we'll just adjust that so that basically over time this envelope is going to modulate the cutoff frequency of the filter. So far we've got this. So already we're really close to having the sound that we want. The next thing we're going to do is dive into the effects section, and we're going to click this hyperdimension effect. Now we're not actually using the dimension part of this effect. By default the mix is set to 0, so this isn't actually doing anything at the minute. But what we're going to do is just bring down the mix down on this hyper effect, and essentially the way the hyper effect works is similar to that of the unison and an oscillator. It's basically creating multiple voices of the sound as a whole and then detuning them to make it sound much bigger. So in the oscillator this is doing it's going through that process but just for that oscillator, whereas in the effects it's kind of affecting the whole sound and making it sound bigger, as you can hear here. So really nice way to actually thicken up a sound and make it sound even bigger. The next thing we're going to add obviously is a reverb. So if I just play this as is, like that already to me sounds really nice, but what I prefer to do when I've been designing some of the pluck sounds for my preset pack and also a lot of the leads and stuff as well is I think the reverb by default has a bit too much high end in it, but I mean obviously this comes down to personal preference. So what you can do to make the reverb sound even warmer and take some of those high frequencies out is increase this high cut knob, and what this is going to do is just attenuate some of the high frequencies in the sound, so it'll sound a little bit warmer. And I really like that. The next thing that is completely optional, so at the minute we've only got reverb. At the beginning you will have heard some delay on the sound as well, and I really like delay on pluck sounds. Usually I'm quite picky with delay, like a lot of the time I don't really like delay effect on most leads, for example, but on plucks I think it sounds really nice. And what you will have seen I did there was actually just change the, but essentially what this little graph here is going to do is change it's basically like an EQ or a filter for just the delay version of the sound. So what I like to do usually on delay is kind of high pass it so that you're cutting out a lot of the low frequencies in the delay. And I forgot to do it for the reverb, but I also like to do this for the reverb as well. The reason for this is because delayed or reverberated versions of the sound with a lot of low frequency content in a mix will make it sound really muddy. So just making sure on the reverb that you increase this low cut amount, and also using the filter on the delay to just cut out some of the low frequencies of the delay is a really great way to just clean up the sound a little bit. And this won't affect the raw sound, it'll only affect the delayed and reverberation versions of the sound. And that pretty much covers the sound. That's very, very close to what I showed at the beginning. So I'll just play the finished sound here. Really, really nice. It really reminds me of a lot of Deadmau5's older stuff, and it's just a really, really, really great sound, especially to use not only in trance but progressive house, breakdowns for other genres of music as well. This is a really, really versatile sound, and I really, really like it. Some other things you might want to do, you could perhaps change one of the oscillators to be a different waveform. That might add some extra texture to the sound. You could also think about adding some noise into the sound. One thing that I did on some of the plucks in the preset pack as well was decreasing the mix amount. So I'll just show you what this actually sounds like. Like, that can have a really nice effect on the sound, and essentially all this is doing is at the minute when mix is full, we're just hearing all the sound through the filter, so we're not hearing any of the raw sound. But if you decrease the mix amount, essentially we're hearing the sound go through the filter, and we're also hearing sound being bypassed by the filter and just hearing the raw sound, which adds a nice little bit of texture I really like. But if you just want that real kind of solid pluck sound, you're probably going to want the mix to be full. But yeah, that might be something you might want to think about doing as well. But yeah, that pretty much covers the sound. As I said, it's really, really simple to make. Hopefully you found this tutorial useful, especially if you're a beginner. I can see this being useful. It can seem really hard to make these really nice sounds sometimes, but really once you know how much you learn it, it's really quite easy to make sounds. And then once you know how to make sounds like this, you can go from there and be really creative and stuff. So yeah, hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, please leave a like on the video, and subscribe to my channel if you want to stay up to date with videos like this. If you have any questions about this preset or any other tutorials or any suggestions or feedback or anything like that, feel free to leave comments down below. I do try and interact with people, and yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Other than that, if you want to get your hands on a 256 preset trance pack for Serum, click the link in the description below or head over to SerumPresets.com. I really appreciate it when you buy my packs. It really helps support me and the channel, and it keeps me creating content for you guys. And yeah, so thanks a lot for that if you decide to purchase that. But other than that, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.